What if I told you that one of history's most powerful empires, the same empire that preached civilization, Christianity, and the rule of law, was actually the world's largest drug cartel? Not a cartel that operated in the shadows, a cartel that ran openly, with government backing, with military enforcement, and with the Queen's blessing. This is the story of how the British Empire didn't just dabble in drug trafficking, they industrialized it, weaponized it, and when their biggest customer tried to quit, they went to war to keep them addicted. This is the story of the Opium Empire. London, 1820s. Picture this. Every social class in Britain, from factory workers to aristocrats, is obsessed with one thing: Chinese tea. Not just a beverage, an addiction, a daily ritual. The entire British economy ran on tea breaks. The government taxed it. Fortunes were made importing it. But here's the problem. China had what Britain wanted. Britain had nothing China wanted in return. The Chinese emperor said, "No thanks, we're good. Pay us in silver." And Britain paid, and paid, and paid. By the 1830s, British silver was hemorrhaging out of the country at a catastrophic rate. We're talking millions of pounds sterling vanishing into Chinese vaults every year. The Bank of England was being bled dry. Economists warned of bankruptcy. Britain needed a solution, fast. So what did they do? They didn't innovate better products. They became drug dealers. Here's where it gets diabolical. The British Empire, through the East India Company, already controlled massive territories in India. And they had the perfect crop, the opium poppy. Now, opium wasn't new, but what the British did was unprecedented. They industrialized it. They forced Indian farmers to grow opium instead of food. They built factories to process raw opium into smokable product. They created the supply chain for mass addiction. But here's the genius and the evil of the scheme. The British government officially banned opium exports to China. On paper, Britain had clean hands, but the EIC would hold massive auctions in Calcutta. They sold opium to private merchants and smugglers. These smugglers would load their ships and sail to the southern coast of China. They'd bribe local officials, operate in the dead of night, unload their cargo into a network of distribution that spread like poison through Chinese society. The Chinese paid in silver. That silver went to the EIC to buy tea. The tea went to London. It was a money laundering operation on a national scale. The British government funded the Royal Navy and the occupation of India. The British Empire had become a narco state. Let's talk numbers, because the scale is staggering. By 1820, they smuggled 4,500 chests. By 1838, it was over 40,000 chests per year. That's 5.6 million pounds of opium annually. Profits were over 3 million pounds per year, equivalent to hundreds of millions today. This was the economic engine. And the Chinese government, they saw what was happening. Entire cities were becoming opium dens. Social fabric was tearing apart. 2 million addicts. Some say 12. The British government maintained plausible deniability. Officially, the Crown opposed the trade. Parliament held debates. Moral outrage was performed. But behind closed doors, the smugglers were protected by British naval vessels. The auction houses were run under British administration. It was organized crime in uniform. And then China fought back. A Chinese official named Lin Zexu is appointed imperial commissioner. His mission? End the opium crisis. Lin wasn't playing games. He wrote a letter directly to Queen Victoria, one of the most powerful moral arguments ever written to a head of state. He said, "You ban opium in your own country because it destroys lives, yet you allow it to be smuggled into mine. Where is your humanity?" The letter never got a response. So Lin took action. He confiscated over 20,000 chests of opium and dumped them into the ocean. He demanded the British stop the trade entirely. And the British Empire's response? War. Not just war. A war to force China to keep buying drugs they were willing to kill to protect the money. The First Opium War was a massacre. China's navy stood no chance against British gunboats. They bombarded ports and held the economy hostage. The Treaty of Nanjing was one-sided. China had to pay 21 million pounds, cede Hong Kong, and open 5 ports. And opium? It wasn't even mentioned. It remained legal. By the 1850s, Britain launched a second war, burned the Summer Palace, and forced full legalization. The British Empire wasn't just involved in the trade. They were the trade. Today, we look at modern cartels and call them criminals. But the British Empire was a narco state on a scale they could never dream of. History isn't pretty, but it's real. Now here's the part that makes this story truly insidious. The British government maintained what modern criminals call plausible deniability. On the official record, the Crown opposed the trade. Parliament held debates, but behind closed doors, the East India Company's revenue was taxed by the British government. When Chinese officials protested, British diplomats would shrug and say we can't control private merchants. But those merchants were licensed by the Crown and protected by the Navy. And then China fought back. A Chinese official named Lin Zexu was appointed. His mission? End the opium crisis. Lin wasn't playing games. He wrote a letter to Queen Victoria, one of the most powerful moral arguments ever written. He asked, "You ban opium in your own country? Where is your morality in sending it to mine?" The letter never got a response, so Lin took action. He confiscated over 20,000 chests of opium and had them destroyed, mixed with lime and salt in the ocean. The British response? War. Not for territory, but to force China to keep buying drugs. The British economy had become dependent on drug money, and they were willing to kill for it. The First Opium War lasted from 1839 to 1842. It was a massacre. China's navy stood no chance against modern gunboats and artillery. Port after port was bombarded. When China tried to surrender, Britain didn't just demand reparations. They demanded the right to keep selling opium. The Treaty of Nanjing was one of the most one-sided in history. China had to pay £21 million in reparations, cede Hong Kong, and open 5 ports. Nowhere in the treaty was opium actually made illegal. Opium imports skyrocketed. By the 1850s, the trade was double what it was before the war. The British were fighting to protect an addiction-based economy. When China resisted again, Britain and France launched the Second Opium War. They burned the Summer Palace and forced full legalization. 10% of China became addicted. The British Empire wasn't just involved in the drug trade. They were the trade. Understanding this blueprint helps us see the echoes of these tactics in our world today. Thanks for watching. If this opened your eyes, share it. The truth deserves to be told.